There were many times, months and years of my life in which I didn't know exactly what I was searching for. I was just trying things, traveling, knowing people, writing, and then something appears and you start noticing that it will be important for you. But I think this is a process that needs a lot of passions and curiosity. And then when you explore many different ways, in the end, you find again a good way for you, a good pathway.
By now, most of you would have heard, if not read already, this lovely book called Ikigai by Francesc Miralles and Hector Garcia. What was initially thought to be a book that might interest a certain section of people caught the attention of the world. Ikigai has gone on to sell millions of copies, stood number one in non-fiction categories, and translated into many other languages, including Indian languages. But much before Ikigai the book happened, the award-winning author Francesc has always lived in the pursuit of his Ikigai, following his heart's desire. I'm Mahati Ragarajan, your host, and you wouldn't want to miss this insightful conversation. It's such a thrill to have you on the show. In fact, when I started reading up about you, I felt your life was so interesting. To just quickly sum it up, you studied journalism, and after that you quit and you worked at a cafe as a waiter for some time where you learned piano. And then you did English and you worked as a primary teacher, and you're a musician as well. And during the Balkan Wars, you stayed in Croatia and Slovenia.
Yes.
Yeah, that formed the basis of your book, Cafe Balkan. And eventually you did your editorial studies and became an editor. So just from reading up and summarizing this, could I say that maybe you've always been the kind to follow your heart in what you want to do?
Yes, I was always very keen on traveling and changing and starting again. So I was that kind of seeker that you are looking for something, but you don't know what you are looking for. So the most stable thing I had, it was traveling. So during many years of my life, since 18 to 27, 28, my life was working and traveling, working and traveling. I changed studies many times. I was moving always from one place to the other. And this was my way of learning what is life about. So it was my inspiration more than going to university. That in the end I finished my studies in German philology. My university was knowing people, knowing different cultures, going by train, living as a cooperant, so working for projects for NGOs and this kind of life.
Very interesting. It's not easy to, say, okay, I'm done with this. Now let's see what else is there in store. So what made you do that? It's a bold decision to take.
Yes, I think the only clear thing I had when I was 17, 18, 19 is that I wanted to discover the world. So when somebody asked me, what is your profession or what you're studying or what is your job? I said, I am professional traveler. Apart from that, I can do any job. I can work. I have worked as a courier, working as a waiter, as a teacher of German language.
Yeah.
I have worked in so many different places, but actually I was interested in knowing people and knowing myself, experiencing new things. And these times in the Balkan wars, it was because I didn't want to go to the army as a soldier. And so I was sent to work in a refugee camp.
Oh.
So I worked with children in a kindergarten and these kind of things.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yes.
And when you worked with a publishing company
Yeah.
and later left that job, you said that you don't want to work in a company anymore.
No, I don't want to work in an office where you have a schedule and you have to be 8, 9, 10 hours there. There is a always in every office, there are people who are bullying the others. There are a lot of problems in companies, at least in Spain, of power.
Okay.
There is a competition for power and what is getting here, who is nearer to the boss, and I didn't like that. So I loved the books, and I loved the job of publishing books and editing them and discovering new talents and new titles, but I didn't like the daily life in the office. Because of that, when I quitted this to go to India for my first trip, I left my job and I traveled to India. I decided that I wouldn't work in a company never more in my life, and I have been faithful to this idea.
That's wonderful. In fact, it's in India that you were inspired to write your first novel, Lost in Bombay, a children's book.
Yes, it was the first time because I had written things of psychology, of literature. I had written non-fiction books before. But when I was in India, I was living so many things, visiting places so different from one to the other,
Okay.
talking with a lot of people, traveling, going here and there, that I thought that it was a very good inspiration to write my first novel. And it was a novel for children called Lost in Bombay. It was published in Catalan only.
Okay.
But it was my first experience, and I wrote it in a notebook with a pen every night when I was in the hostel. I wrote 2, 3, 4 pages, and when I came back from India, I had already the novel written in my pack, my backpack.
So, how was the book received?
Oh, it was my first experience with novels. I had never written a novel, and so I gave this book to a literary prize. It's a literary prize for novels addressed to children.
Okay.
And the jury read my novel with a lot of interest. My novel didn't win the prize because it was not so well written. There were some problems in language. I was not used to write that kind of genre. And then there was another book who won the prize.
Okay.
But this jury wrote a note to the publisher and said, this novel is very interesting. If the author can make some corrections, it could be published in this company. So they asked me to do that. I corrected the book, and then the book was published 1 year after, and maybe was reprinted 8 or 10 times. It's a book that is still in the schools. Many children get to know India through this book.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yes.
Coming back to India, could I ask what were the places you visited? Do you remember the names?
Yes, I've been 3 times in India. Last time professionally, it was last year.
Yeah.
This first trip was South India. I started in Bombay. From there, we went to Kerala, many places in Kerala, the backwaters, Cochin, here. And then we were traveling south until the very south of India, then coming north again. And I was in Madurai. I was in many cities, every day in a different place. I was also in Anantapur in a foundation of a Spanish missionary called Vicente Ferrer, a trip that was a mixture of traveling, looking at this project that is called the Rural Development Trust, and talking with many people in the trains, in the cafes, in the street, making photos, writing. So it was a long trip in which I got full of impressions and experiences that made me wish to become a writer of fiction. So it was very important for me because I had read a lot about India. In my favorite books, it was the Book of Life of Jiddu Krishnamurti. I was very interested in Ramana Maharshi and in many things of the Indian culture.
Right.
And so being there and seeing the people, seeing the different religions. It was very interesting for me. But I felt very happy with this trip. And then in a second trip, I went to the north. And the third one was last year that I was for a book tour in, in 4 or 5 big cities of India, but it was different. It was professionally getting there. You go to the car, to the hotel, from the hotel to the theater,
Yeah.
and you don't see anything. I was, the only thing I saw, it was in Calcutta, the house of this great writer, the Nobel Prize. Now I don't remember the name, the Indian Nobel Prize of literature.
Rabindranath Tagore.
Yeah, I was in the house of Rabindranath Tagore. Yes.
Wonderful. What was it about India when you visited the place the first time surprised you the most?
I would say the diversity, because actually it's called that Europe is very diverse, but it's not so much. There are a lot of countries in a small in a small place. So maybe whole Europe, you could put it inside India, and every 100 kilometers you can change the boundary and the country. But actually, everything is very similar. Same shops, same things. And when I was in India, by that time, last year, I saw that the country has changed so much. It has nothing to do with what I knew. That the whole world was that. Animals in the street, different kind of monks, of temples, and people very communicative. So I was fascinated with life.
Okay.
I think that sitting in a street, in a square in India, you could see more things than in a whole year in your city. So that was interested me. That every culture, every religion, every spiritual trend, every vision, the poor people, the rich people, the yuppies, the monks, everything was in the same place. So for a writer, it's extremely interesting that.
Yeah. So, could I ask what drives you to write?
Yeah, actually, I am not the kind of writer that needs to write every day in his life. I have many friends like that that say that if they wouldn't write, they would die. I am not like that. I can be without writing perfectly. I write when I have the need to explain a good story.
Okay.
So when I was in India for the first time, I had the need of explaining how life was seen by a foreigner, how was from the eyes of a new person coming to this world, to explain it to other people who don't know it. But or when I was with Hector Garcia in Japan and we visited the village of the centenarians, we wanted to tell this special way of life. But my my way of being a writer is more like the journalist who has a good story and wants to share it with the others. It's not because my ego needs that I write poetry or literature or something like that. I am more a communication person.
Okay. Could I ask your writing process? Like, what do you do to get into the mood to write? I mean, do you use a laptop or do you use a typewriter, like old school?
I use a laptop. My first 3 novels, I wrote it by hand in a notebook and with a fountain pen, and I was very strict with that. But in the end, I realized that it was a losing time,
Yeah.
because after that you correct on your own handwriting. Many times I couldn't understand my own corrections. So it was a problem. And then I had to transcribe it into the computer and then read it again in the computer. So the process of writing was twice or 3 times slower than normal. So I started using the computer, the laptop. And for me, the ritual of writing is a matter of discipline. In the beginning, you need to hold all the information. So in the first part of your job, I would say the longest one is knowing exactly what you are going to tell. And if you are writing a nonfiction or a fiction that is in some other place that is not your city, you will need a lot of information
Yeah.
to express the time that you are going to tell, the characters, the places, how it smells, how are the five senses implied in this story. And then your second part is writing a script or something like that. You must have some order, some plan in what you are going to tell. There are two kinds of writer. They say that there are writers with a map and writers with a compass. The writer with a map needs to have everything decided before. So chapter 1, this is going to happen. Chapter 2, this new character comes, this dies. Chapter 3, this is having a map. But for other writers, it can be boring. So they prefer to write with a compass. And it means that what you write today is going to inspire you for what you are going to write tomorrow. I would be something in the middle. I have some map when I start writing. So for instance, if the book has 50 chapters, maybe I have very clear 7 or 8, one in the beginning, one in the end, some main changes, but I improvise also.
Okay. Do you worry about things like writer's block, or is my writing good enough?
I teach writing courses very often to young people, and I always tell them that writer's block, it can happen because of two reasons. One is that you have not prepared enough information for what you need. So if we are going to write about colonial India in the 18th century, and you haven't read the books and you don't have the information of how was this life with the British and this, it's possible that you get stopped in some part of your story, but you need to have all this before. And second, this feeling that maybe is not good enough, what you're writing, will it be published? What will other people think about that? And I always tell to the writers that they don't need to think at all about these things. When you are writing the book, the only thing important for you is getting to the end, even if what you are writing is very bad. You must allow yourself to be bad.
Okay.
Because when you finish the first draft, maybe you are only going to use 20% or 30%, but you have come to an end. You have a beginning, and then you can start rewriting and writing maybe new chapters. But I would say that you shouldn't judge your work before the first draft is finished. So what you need is to judge how many pages you're doing. If you are doing 3-4 pages a day, and today I only do half, then yes, I can say you didn't work today. You are out of this story, but you don't have the distance to understand if what you are doing right now will be okay, or if you are going to change it. You need some months so that the manuscript can have some rest, and then you can take it again.
Okay, interesting. Why did you used to write under a pseudonym? I think Albert Lieberman, and you also use Nobu Suzuki.
Oh, I have a lot of them, maybe 15 pseudonyms.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I have a lot. The origin of these pseudonyms was that when I worked as a publisher, sometimes we needed an author to work on a very precise topic. For instance, the 365 ideas of Taoism, or the book of the American Indians, or I don't know. And sometimes we didn't have that precise book that we wanted to publish, and then we used to order it to some professional writer. And because I wrote in the beginning, I was working half time. Sometimes the senior publisher said, "Why don't you write that if you know perfectly this topic and you have all the bibliography in this?" And then I started using different pseudonyms for different kind of books.
Okay.
Albert Lieberman was more a self-help author. Francis Amalfi was a kind of anthologist of quotes of different topics. Then I had a pseudonym for novels. And in the end, I had 12 or 14 or 15 pseudonyms. And it was a way to work on a very precise product, a book, and that you needn't to be there in the promotion. And even it was good sometimes that the people thought that this author is English or American, because by that time there was this idea that if the author was local, Spanish author, maybe the book is not so good as something that has been translated. There was this kind of prejudice. So it was when I was working a lot in the industry,
Right.
and so I wrote a lot of books under pseudonym. Yes.
That's nice. So, does a different persona of you come out whenever related to the pen name that you're using?
Yes. It was very relaxing because when you write under a pen name, you are like hidden. Nobody is seeing you, and then you launch the book. And if somebody is not happy with your opinions, they don't know how to find you.
Yeah. So, then of course, you wrote Ikigai with Hector Garcia. Um, was it difficult for you to co author a book?
No, because I have co-authored many times. I think in Spain, I am the author with more co-books of all the country. With Hector, we write books about Japanese culture.
Right.
We knew each other in Tokyo when I was doing my investigation for a novel that I wrote in Kyoto. And then there was this project of going to Okinawa, going to the north of the island to interview all these old people in the village of the centenarians. And that was the beginning of the project that ended in the book Ikigai, that nowadays is the most famous book I have written. But it was by chance. Actually, what we wanted to do was a trip. We were two friends going for a trip to a different place where they have not been. And we were moved by curiosity. We wanted to learn something new and to discover this style of life, and we couldn't expect that it would be so successful.
Yeah. I'm guessing it must have totally surprised you both.
Totally, because we thought it was a book for Japan specialists. We thought it would be interesting for people who read a lot about Zen culture, Japanese traditional art, travel books. We thought we were going to this audience, and it was a big surprise. Not only that, so general public was reading our book, but also that so many countries were interested in our investigation, even countries like India, Turkey, Holland, United States. In some moments, it was number one in nonfiction. So it was a big surprise for us.
And it's been translated in so many languages, including Indian languages.
Yes, I think 8 or 9 different Indian languages. So it was a surprise for us.
Um, do you think it resonated so much because, a world or society desperately wants to slow down, but they don't know how to?
I think we are in a very spiritual phase of humankind, and people is very interested in knowing themselves, in knowing the meaning of life, in finding a purpose. And because of that, I think that the topics inside Ikigai are very interesting for people, especially for the young readers, that they are in a world full of changes, full of uncertainty, where they don't know what is going to happen. And then the only thing you can do is to center in your passions, to center in your talent, and to say, okay, what I am. If I know what I am, then I can see which direction I take to help the world to be better, to develop my powers, my talents.
Right.
Because of that, I think that Ikigai has been so successful, because nowadays, with all this chaos that we are living, the only thing that you can rely on is in your own direction. And because of that, people want to know better what is their purpose, what is their element, their talent, and which contribution they can give to the world.
Yeah. And I think people, in a way, have forgotten that to understand what is your journey, you have to go inwards and not look outwards.
Both. I would say that every outer journey changes something inside, and the opposite. When you know yourself, then you have more tools to change the world.
Yeah.
So normally, people who are powerful, people who are inspiring, who do important things, are people who have first explored inside what what they could give to the world. So I think everything, the Indian people, know it better than we, the Westerners. Everything starts inside, and you go to the source of yourself, and then you find what you need for the journey to go to the others. So I think both aspects are necessary for a successful life and for a happy life.
Yeah. You've mentioned, for you how your ikigai has changed from time to time. Earlier, it used to be traveling, and then it was teaching or writing.
Teacher, publishing, writing, yes.
And now to help others find their ikigai.
Yes, that's it. And I think it's normal that if you are somebody that is moving, that is changing, your ikigai will change every 5, 6, 7 years. When you go to the end of you had to learn in this field, you will move to another field. So I think it's normal that you will change your priorities in life every X years. So it means that one ikigai would be always to discover your new ikigai.
Okay.
So that you will be always a searcher, and maybe you will become 70 and then you will discover something new and you will start a new exploration. For instance, now the last time I was in art school, in fine arts school, it was with 14. And now with 52, I've come back 35 years after.
Oh.
And I am restarting again to paint, to draw. So I think human beings are like that. We are not like dogs or cats. If you live with dogs or cats, they do every day the same. But we need always a bit of discomfort. We need a bit of exploration to feel alive. And that's what makes that with the years, maybe you finish a passion and you start another.
That's so wonderful. You're rediscovering art.
Mm.
I know in the book you say people shouldn't fret too much about discovering the ikigai. For you, was it an organic thing going from one ikigai to another, or did you have to like try out a lot of things before you found it?
There were many moments in my life in which I didn't like nothing at all. So, because between one ikigai and the next one, there is a kind of desert crossing. So, for instance, when I finished my job as a publisher, it was in a very bad way because I suffered mobbing during more than 2 years, and I was totally exhausted. And when I came to India, I didn't know what I was. I was somebody who had suffered in job, in working, and I was traveling to recover myself, but I didn't feel like a writer. I was writing
Okay.
like I am drawing now because I wanted to do something different, but I didn't know at all what would be my life. So it's normal that when something finishes, it's like a love breakup. So when you finish a relationship, it's not good to go immediately to the next one because you need some time of reflection and to understand what happened, what could you have done better, what do you want from life now. And so
Yeah.
there were many times, months and years of my life in which I didn't know exactly what I was searching for. I was just trying things, traveling, knowing people, writing, watching movies, talking with other people which were inspiring for me. And then something appears, something comes, and you start noticing that it will be important for you. But I think this is a process that needs a lot of patience and curiosity. And then when you explore many different ways, in the end, you find again a good way for you, a good pathway.
And how did you stay resilient during this low phase in your life, before you found a meaning?
I would say trying to nourish yourself with good materials. So the problem of many people who are depressed is that they don't control what they put into their brains. So if you are all day watching news, listening to the politicians, in the social media where there are a lot of people insulting and with conspiranoic theories, of course you will be depressed because the image of the world you are receiving is something horrible.
Yeah.
It's something where you don't want to live in a place like that. But if you choose what you give to your brain, we choose what we give to our body as a nourishment. If you choose the intellectual nourishment of your brain and you read good books and you see good documentaries and inspiring movies, you talk with positive people, with people who are entrepreneurs, who encourage you to do things, then you live in a totally different reality. So what I always try to do when I didn't know exactly where I was having good influences through culture, books, movies, music, concerts. And I tried to do a lot of things myself to express what I had inside. Then I was playing the piano, I was writing. Uh, there was a part of my life in which I wrote theater plays. I had a little company. We had rehearsals every week, and we went to the stage in small places. So if you are active, depression won't catch you. So I think it's very important uh, to fly away from resignation and to use these desert crossings to do something good for your future. So to prepare yourself, to move new ideas, to investigate, and to have good nourishment for your soul and for your brain.
Yeah. So when you are pursuing your passion, your ikigai, does it ever become a little mundane? And if it does it mean that maybe it's, you've outlived your ikigai and it's time for you to find another purpose?
Yeah, I think an ikigai has always a beginning in which everything is very exciting. For instance, when you get published your first book, this is something very special. A friend of mine, a woman of Mexico, she told me that when she got published her first book, she slept with the book all night in bed.
That's so sweet.
For her, it was something very important to have accomplished that. But when you publish 10 books, 20 books, 50 books, it becomes something normal. It becomes your job. And you still love it, but it's not something that will surprise you.
Yeah.
In this point is when you need to try something different. Because of that, I am coming back to plastic arts and all this. You must do something that you don't master. That's very interesting in the theory of flow of this Hungarian professor of the book Flow that explores how happiness is flowing totally with an activity. He says that the joyful flow is between what is easy and what is very difficult. If you do something that is very easy for you, like, I don't know, writing nonfiction books, then you lose motivation because it's too easy for you.
Yeah.
If you do something that is too difficult and you put a lot of pressure there, maybe you get blocked. So you must go in the middle. You must go forward doing things that are not easy, not difficult, something that you can do, but that needs from you that you always progress. And that would be, I think, the secret of that.
Okay. I know Ikigai is about the art of keeping yourself busy with what you love doing, and you might have heard about the Chinese philosophy of Wu Wei, which means
Yes,
being still, just being. It's about inaction.
yes.
So, how do you find that balance between when do you pursue something and when do you just let it rest and be?
This is the human wisdom. So I think Wu Wei has saved me from many disgusting things in life. I will put you an example. I work for a national newspaper and for different magazines.
Okay.
And one of these publications uh, changes the boss every 2, 3 months. And I am in the psychology section, and I have had all kind of people being the boss. People who were very respectful, people very creative, but also very unrespectful people who changes totally your article, who are writing mails with very bad words. And my feeling, my impulse in these cases was to say, okay, I am quitting. I don't want to know anything else from you. But then if you put the Wu Wei, that what happens that this person is moved, somebody else comes, and you go on there, and then you're okay. And in life, it's almost always like that. I have seen that when you are very angry with somebody and you write a mail, a telephone message, or you have a very violent conversation, it very rarely it comes something good from that.
Yeah.
So because the person who did that is not prepared psychologically or spiritually to understand you. So why to confront this? And for this Wu Wei, I would say that it's something that we should use, especially when the atmosphere, the situation is very tense, there is a lot of pressure, or the person we have in front of us is very different from us, then it's better not to do anything, wait, and time puts things in the correct places. But to be proactive, the other thing that you say, I think the wisdom of a human being is knowing when to stop and when to activate things. There is a moment to move forward and to show things to the world. But when you are in a negative environment, the best thing to do is nothing. You wait until other people are there or the mental situation is changed. So I would say that combining Wu Wei with proactivity in the correct moments is the key to success.
Okay. And what are the steps you take to slow down? Because we're all running from one meeting or schedule or living by the clock. Oh, by this time we need to do this, we need to be here. So, how difficult is it for you to remember to slow down or, just be present?
All of us, we have very practical things to slow down. One is reading a real book, because when we are in front of a real book, if we put all our attention there, is an act of mindfulness. You are only in the reading, only in every word, and you are imagining these scenarios or these ideas. You are talking with the other author. If you only read, you are slowing down. If you go for a walk without checking your cell phone, and you walk on the streets and you look people around you, or you are in a park or in a forest, then you are slowing down. And even if you practice what the Italian call dolce far niente, the sweet not doing nothing,
Okay.
that is just sitting in a cafe looking at the sky, listening to music, and you only listen to music, meditating if you want, painting. So there are many possibilities that we have to slow down. I would say that the opposite of a slow down is the multitasking.
Yeah.
When you are walking in the street, trying to answer a couple of messages in WhatsApp, trying to see what is happening in Instagram, trying to think what is needed to do today, remembering what you didn't do yesterday. And then in the end, your heart beats are like a very quick drum, and then you are feeling bad. So doing only one thing at the same time, it's already a way to slow down.
Okay. So, what are your favorite books or you would recommend for anyone to lead a calm and purposeful life?
It depends on what this person is reading normally. I would say that the most impressive for me nonfiction book of the 20th century was The Man in Search of a Meaning, the book of Viktor Frankl that introduced the logotherapy, the therapy of the meaning of life. This is a very important book for me.
Okay.
I would say also to read something like The Little Prince, if you are a young person. These books of Hermann Hesse, I love especially Demian, Siddhartha too. And personally, if you are very interested in intellectual life and you want a very deep and complex book, but you can read it easily, my favorite is The Magus of John Fowles. This is the most important book
Okay.
in my life because this reading changed me, made me take a lot of new decisions. And it's a novel, but it's a novel with a lot of philosophical and intellectual issues. So it was very transformational for me.
Oh, interesting. Could you mention the title again?
Yes, it's The Magus of John Fowles.
All right.
It's very famous in the Anglo-Saxon countries.
Okay. I'll check it out. Um, do you have any regrets? Do you wish you'd done anything differently?
A lot of things. So I stopped doing that. I used to travel to the past to edit my deeds.
Uh,
So there are many things that I wouldn't do if I could travel with the present wisdom to moments of my life. Actually, during the lockdown, I was 9 months writing my biography, my autobiography. I wrote it from March to the summer, to September, October. I was 9 months writing a book about my life and my masters
okay.
to express in some way. And when I was reviewing moments of my life, especially in fields like love, friendship, there would be many, many things that I would be differently. It was a horror for me to see my life in 320 pages, but I learned that in this life, the only way to go forward is committing many, many mistakes. And the wisest person in earth maybe is the one who made more mistakes.
Yeah. So, have you completed the book? Are you planning to publish it?
Yes, I completed the book. It will be only in Spanish by now in May.
Okay.
But it was a good exercise of summarizing your life. Actually, with my students, there is an exercise that I recommend. I can recommend it to you.
Sure.
You don't need to write your life, but there is a very simple exercise you can do that is very revealing. Now imagine that you are extremely famous and that you are a journalist that is going to write a book about your life. What would be the title or the subtitle? Because the title maybe is your name, but imagine if Steve Jobs, we say Steve Jobs, the man who changed, I don't know, informatics. What would be your leitmotif of your life right now? Which title would you put there? And then you go on with this exercise and you imagine the table of contents.
Okay.
If the book of your life would have 10 chapters, what would be the name of every chapter? But a title that defines every piece of your life. And then when I was writing about my childhood, for instance, when I was a child, I felt very lonely and I was always alone in my room, dreaming and listening to the radio and imagining a lot of things. So if you consider your life as a book and you put a name for every part of your life, you can understand much better what is the plot and where are you going now, and you can make more changes.
Yeah, that's a really interesting experiment. I'm definitely going to give it a shot.
Okay.
Yeah. So my last question to you is, what are you working on now?
Right now, I am not writing anything. I am preparing the launching of this book, and I am working right now in e-learning. We have an Ikigai course that is only in Spanish, and now we are preparing the English version, maybe for April or May. And now I am working more in articles for newspapers, and it would be maybe in a couple of months or so that I can start some new book. Right now, I am in smaller things.
Okay. Do you have an idea what your next book might be? Would it be something about, I've noticed that you really like about the Japanese philosophy, culture. You've even written Ichigo Ichie.
Yes, I have written many Japanese books about Japanese words and topics and concepts. And my new book, when I start writing it, it will be something different. I won't find the inspiration in Japan. I want to write maybe more generally about life, but I haven't decided yet. Now, maybe in a couple of months, I will start with some new project, but I am still in the period of thinking of many possibilities.
Okay.
And then one day, maybe you have a dream and you wake up and you say, is this the direction I must take right now? You must open to feel what you need to do in every moment. It's not good to know exactly what I am going to write in 2 months, in 1 year, because life changes all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's much more interesting that you feel what is happening around you, what is happening inside you. And when you have a very strong need to express something, then you sit and you write it.
That's actually wonderful advice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Francis. I loved talking to you.
Thank you very much for such a wonderful interview.
If you haven't already read the book Ikigai, I highly recommend that you do. And let me know your thoughts. You can reach me at Maharani Talks on Instagram. Take care.